Hey, it's Paris. You know I love sparkly things, right? Like stars. Duh. And thanks to Hilton and AutoCamp, I just slept under them. Picture me, serving looks by the fire outside my luxurious Airstream, making s'mores with the kids, while a national park is our backdrop. The great outdoors meets Hilton hospitality. That's hot. Explore all the new ways to stay at Hilton.com. Hilton for the stay.
With a major selection of the looks your kiddos love starting at just $4 in the Walmart app, a new school year means a stylish new them. Who knew? Find skater skirts and Crocs that say, I'm casual but cool. Sparkly sneakers that say, it's my classroom, you're just learning in it. And preppy polos that say, I'm the teacher's pet, even if they're mommy's menace at home. Find their favorite styles starting at just $4 in the app. The Walmart you thought you knew is now new.
Hey business owners, we know you know the importance of maximizing every dollar. With the Delta SkyMiles Reserve Business American Express card, you can make your expenses work just as hard as you. From afternoon coffee runs to stocking office supplies and even team dinners, you can earn miles on all your business expenses. Plus, you can earn 125,000 bonus miles for a limited time through October 29th. The Delta SkyMiles Reserve Business Card. If you travel, you know. Minimum spending requirements and terms apply. Offer ends October 29th, 2025.
Hello and welcome to The Price of Football, the show that looks at the money behind the beautiful game with me, Kevin Day, and Liverpool University's Kieran Maguire. Someone's looking very pleased with themselves, Kieran, on this special questions pod we're doing here today.
I'm always irritatingly cheerful. It's actually quite dispiriting to have to work or live with me by all accounts, because I'm bounding around like Tigger all the time.
Yeah, I can imagine it'd be quite hard work, but I'm told it's quite hard work living with a grumpy bugger as well. So somewhere in between you and me is the perfect partner. Wearing a T-shirt, Kieran, of the band called the Molotovs.
If you get a chance to see them,
okay.
I thoroughly recommend it. Yes, Matt and Izzy, and Palace fan, by the way.
Is he?
Matt. Oh yeah,
Is he?
yeah. Very much like the Jam first album.
Oh wow!
I like them a lot. So fantastic band, brother and sister, 20 years old, 19 years old. Yeah, I went along. Everybody there was a mod. So we're all in our 60s, all wearing our Fred Perrys. Few guys gone with the full pork pie hats and the shoes and the full works. But yeah, great band, and very, very energetic.
You've got the build for it, for the mods. I would love to have been a mod, but I was not built for a mod. Slightly too short and slightly too wide to be a mod. You've got it going on. It's questions day, Kieran. We've got a few questions. I assume, I don't know if I should jinx it now, but if these. Because we record, as I explained before, we're recording a few questions pods for logistical reasons. So the news pods are up to date, but we recorded these pods a couple of weeks ago. So Palace are just about to sign Jeremy Pino, which just shows how fickle football fans are. Because the day before the news of that signing came, Palace fans were so miserable. God knows why. They've been driving me up the wall. So miserable, so negative. Spend 30 million quid on someone they barely heard of. That's great. Yeah, big. We're a big club now. We're fine. Speaking of which, Martin Huxley has this question. I'm going to ask it, Kieran. We have spoken about it before, but it continues to baffle people. And I think it's something that's worth explaining. It's about Chelsea, and I think people need to know that Chelsea are not doing anything wrong. And Martin Huxley's question, legally. And Martin Huxley's question is, I know you've spoken about Chelsea and PSR a lot already, but how have they managed to stay within the rules? Their combined losses for 2021-23 were £365 million, and they've carried on spending since. Now, I have to say, I was listening to the Monday Night Club just recently.
I was supposed to be on it as well.
Oh, were you? What happened?
Yeah, I was out on my bike.
Oh.
And I was getting my bike fitted. So I couldn't make it. Yes, I was booked in. So, yeah.
What's you? I did Talk Sport just before the Palace Forest game the Zoom in the pub. Barry Glendinning said, "What's that strange noise around you?" I said, "That's the noise of 30 blokes trying to be quiet." Is what it is. And then he got really paranoid that they were laughing at him. So, and then I pointed out if they were laughing at anybody, it'd be me, Barry. Don't worry. But on the Monday Night Club, I didn't catch his name, but I know he's been on before. But it's very interesting discussions. He was talking about Chelsea and about how what they're doing is perfectly legit, but how inadvertently other clubs seem to be aiding and abetting Chelsea by paying way above the odds for players that Chelsea get in to sell. He said basically that's what they're doing. Chelsea get players in to sell them, but people are paying vast amounts of money for players with 1 or 2 Premier League appearances, or maybe none in some cases. But so it's an interesting thing. But again, we should point out, Kieran, they're just being shrewd. They've found a model, and it's well within the rules, isn't it?
That's right. I think there's 2 things that we can focus on, and Martin's absolutely right. Chelsea have spent an awful lot of money, but there's the player route that they have gone down, and Chelsea have generated £400 million more than any other club in the last decade from player sales. 400 million. And they generated 5 times as much, 500 times, a multiple of 5 compared to Manchester United in gross sales value. So that's what they're good at. Now, part of the reason for that is that when the elite player performance plan came into being, which was just over a decade ago, this gave clubs such as Chelsea the opportunity to effectively ignore the old 90-minute rule, which was far from perfect, and recruit young players from all over the country. They got the benefit that they are in London anyway. London's a very concentrated population. They had been, I think it's fair to say, in the preceding certainly 7 or 8 years, the preeminent London club. So therefore, it made them more attractive to join. So that was one vehicle, and because of the shortcomings of PSR, FFP, whatever you want to call it, because it encourages indirectly clubs to sell academy talent, Chelsea therefore said, well, let's focus on the academy, let's generate players there, give them an opportunity for, even if it's just a couple of games, if you're good enough to play for Chelsea's first team, that increases your value in the market. And that's the route that they've gone down. And they do deserve an awful lot of credit for it. That has a downside as well, because there's a danger that you end up with a reputation as a club that is using children as inventory rather than trying to offer them a pathway into the first team. And we saw that at Newcastle on Monday night when young Rio came on, scored the winning goal. He has come from effectively Chelsea's academy through to Liverpool. Chelsea are pursuing Liverpool now for compensation for that. Part of the reason why he chose to leave Chelsea was that he didn't think he'd have an opportunity to get into the first team, or he'd just be there for a couple of matches and then they'd use him as a vehicle for generating cash. And he didn't want to go down that route. Liverpool were able to persuade him, and he was being sought after by every club that could possibly go near him. Fantastic prospect, as anybody can see from his goal. So that is now slightly coming back to bite Chelsea. So that's the playing side of things. We then come to the manipulation of the rules. And manipulation is not breaking. It's bending rather than breaking. So first of all, Chelsea introduced the amortization policy, signing players on 8 and 9 year contracts. The authorities' reaction to that was, well, okay, we're now going to cap it at 5 years. But they had first mover advantage on that, and they've utilised that. Secondly, they have used related party transactions in the shape of the sale of the real estate, the sale of the women's team. And as we were discussing only a couple of weeks ago, although there's a danger that this deal might collapse, they're using Strasbourg as a vehicle for signing players, because Chelsea can't sign players because they're under a business plan restriction from UEFA. So therefore, they're using the MCO model as a means of parking talent elsewhere within the group until Chelsea can satisfy those particular elements of the rules. They've got good lawyers, they've got good accountants. Their lawyers, I can assure you, are very, very aggressive. And they have managed to, as a result of all this, keep within the UEFA rules, although there has been a breach, as we're aware. But most importantly, they've kept within the Premier League rules, because under the Premier League rules, if there is a breach, there is now an expectation that there will be a points deduction.
Remind us of the UEFA business plan restrictions and why they're there.
Well, Chelsea spent more money on wages than they were supposed to. So wages plus amortisation can't be more than 80% of revenue in 2024. There was a breach of that. Also, under the UEFA rules, the sale of the hotel, the sale of the car parks, the sale of the women's team, they're ignored. So and those profits were well over £250 million. So Chelsea had a massive loss. So what UEFA have said is, you're going to have to go and pay a fine schmine. That's the attitude of Chelsea. It's just a cost of doing business. But secondly, and I think this is the big issue, if you take a look at this window from a cash point of view, so we're ignoring amortisation. So I think UEFA are streets ahead of the Premier League here. We're ignoring amortisation. In this window, you've got to have a negative net spend on what's referred to as your Class A players, i.e. players who were in Chelsea's squad to play in the UEFA conference last year. So if they buy a player for 50 million, they've got to sell a player for 50 million as well. And if it's the total players bought for 300, then you've got to sell players for 301. That's where, in my opinion, Chelsea still have a little bit of work to do before the end of the window. So don't be surprised if there is another exit or two from Chelsea.
There's a cheap joke to be had there about a Class A player Chelsea had issues with in the past. We won't go down there. I just want to clarify this, Kieran. I was trying to clarify this in the pub before the Forest game. So I think there's a fundamental misunderstanding that some people have, or it might be me, but I think there's a fundamental misunderstanding. If a club wanted to spend £500 million in a season on players, they're perfectly entitled to do that, as long as they have £500 million coming in to balance the books. There's no one's being stopped from spending as much money as they want, as long as they can balance it on the other side, aren't they? In
fact, there's a case, and the record spending in a single season is in fact Chelsea from the first year under Clear Lake Capital, when they spent 745 million gross. There's a case for saying you can buy players for 500 million, and you only have to sell players for 100 million, because if you sign them on 5-year contracts, your amortization cost, 500 divided by 5, it means I've got a cost of 100 million going into the books, and therefore I've got to match that through player sales of 100 million. And it's that anomaly which, to give UEFA some credit, they've said, well, we think the rules are a bit daft, and that's why they've moved to this cash approach. But if you're not playing in Europe, you can spend far more than the value of the players that you're selling and still be at a zero cost.
This next question, Kieran, comes from Luke Hodgkinson, and it's a cracker, I think. And Luke says, following the recent Deadpool movie and Paul Mullin's cameo as Welsh Paul, can owners employ players in their companies and projects outside of football to get around PSR and pay them higher wages? And what could the Premier League and the EFL do to block this? I think that's a really interesting question. Just give them a job in another part of the company and pay them for that.
Well, if we look at the Manchester City 115 charges, which is actually 130 charges.
Is that still going on?
Believe me, it is.
I thought that had been done and dusted ages ago.
Yes. The only issue for me is that I've given exclusive rights of myself for 24 hours to 4 different broadcasters when it happens. I go, yeah, sure, I'll do it. And they go, oh, jeez, no, I'm not supposed to be there. Oh, well.
Oh, I hope it doesn't happen when you're on holiday next with the Baroness. I really don't. You spread yourself too thin, boy.
Yes. So if we take a look, one of the accusations that has been levelled against Manchester City is that Roberto Mancini was being paid £2 million a year, allegedly, by Manchester City Football Club. And he was also doing 4 days' work a year in Abu Dhabi and being paid £2 million as well in order to keep these costs off the books. Is that legal? Yes, it is. If your employer says we will give you the right to work for other people. And remember, many people have got part-time jobs and have got more than one part-time job. So provided it's not in direct conflict with your current employer, then that's fine. I can't go and teach for the University of Manchester if I'm not teaching at the University of Liverpool, if it was a similar course, for example. But sometimes they'll say, if you just want to go and give a guest talk on a subject, they've got no issue with it. And if I get a little bit of money for it, then fine. You know me in negotiations. I tend to just rock up and do it for nothing.
Yeah.
But that's
I know. Yeah.
Yeah, you're giving me that look, aren't you? So as far as Welshpool is concerned, if you take a look at the standard player contract, there are some restrictions. If it is deemed to be something to do with the club, then I suspect that the football authorities would say that might have to come into the being. If it's independent of the club, because normally, if you take a look at the big computer games, on the front cover, there's always a Messi or a Ronaldo or a Rooney or whatever it's going to be. Well, if that can be deemed to be part of your personal company activity, then that's absolutely fine. And there are blurred lines. And I'm certainly aware when I've spoken to players in the National League, at times, one of them was telling me, we had a dressing room where the captain always had to be paid exactly the same or no less than the highest paid player. And this guy's telling me about, I came in, I've been playing at a higher level. I dropped down to the National League. So the club owner paid me £300 a week to be doing something in IT, which meant that I went in and I had a cup of tea twice a week in the owner's office, and that's how I picked up my wages. So the scheme is open to manipulation and abuse. I think when we move to some form of wage cap, which I think is likely, because I anticipate the Premier League will replicate the rules that we have presently under UEFA. Could players end up in no-show jobs, a bit like you used to see Tony Soprano and the guys from the Bada Bing do in episodes of The Sopranos? I couldn't possibly say.
If you've shopped online, chances are you've bought from a business powered by Shopify. You know that purple Shop Pay button you see at checkout, the one that makes buying so incredibly easy? That's Shopify. And there's a reason so many businesses sell with it, because Shopify makes it incredibly easy to start and run your business. Shopify is the commerce platform behind 10% of all e-commerce in the US. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/promo. Go to shopify.com/promo.
This episode is sponsored by Shopify. When we started The Price of Football and things started to take off, it all got a bit overwhelming at times as we were suddenly sorting out recordings, interviews, live shows, and our online store. When you're starting off with something new, it seems like your to-do list keeps growing every day with new tasks, and that list can easily begin to overrun your life. Finding the right tool that not only helps you out, but simplifies everything can be such a game changer. For millions of businesses, that tool is Shopify.
Shopify is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world, from household names like Mattel and Gymshark to brands just getting started. With Shopify, you get your own design studio that includes hundreds of ready-to-use templates. You can accelerate your content creation with Shopify's AI tools that write product descriptions, page headlines, and even enhance your product photography. And you can easily create email and social media campaigns wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling. If you're ready to sell, you're ready for Shopify.
Turn your big business idea into with Shopify on your side. Sign up for a £1 per month trial period at shopify.co.uk/priceoffootball, all lowercase. So go to shopify.co.uk/priceoffootball to take your business to the next level today. That's shopify.co.uk/priceoffootball. Say your club, Brighton, for example, were to be the next club to do a fly on the wall documentary. Could Brighton say to the production company, "I'll tell you what, rather than give us a facility fee, how about you pay the players to be in it?"
Appearance fees.
Would that's all right? That's
if it's using their time, the players' time, and not the club's time, then I suspect they'd be okay. I do think that as we go forward, it's going to be an area where there's going to be an awful lot of claims and counterclaims from third parties involved with players, because there are some clubs whose attitude to rules is that they're not seen as a wall, they're seen as a hurdle, and therefore there will be very close scrutiny from the legal profession and from the accounting profession as to are there ways of circumventing the numbers.
okay. Matthew Plant has this question, Kieran, and Matthew says, with Brentford and Luton recently choosing to keep their kit for 2 seasons rather than 1, how much difference does this actually make environmentally? Surely the kit manufacturer will still be buying a set amount of fabric based on sales forecasts. Are you doing Tai Chi?
I'm doing Morrissey.
Are you doing Morrissey? I wonder. Yeah.
He just said, how much difference does that make?
Yeah, of course. Yes, he did. Of course. I wasn't paying attention. I was reading rather than looking. Doing Morrissey, Tai Chi. There's a niche.
Morrissey.
Oh, no, it doesn't.
I think that's a no.
Okay, we've all got strong views on Morrissey, Finlay.
We do.
You know,
I didn't know I taught him so well.
So let's recap. Matthew Plant says, how much difference does this actually make environmentally? Surely the kit manufacturer will still be buying a set amount of fabric based on sales forecasts. For there to be more benefits to these decisions, should clubs and manufacturers be moving to more recycled fabrics? At least then the increased cost price of those recycled fabrics, coupled with a 2-year kit rotation, will be more attractive to fans to pay the extortionate price of a new shirt. I know Brentford and Luton, Kieran, have got the environment in mind when they make that decision, but they've also very much got their fans in mind as well. It's very much a nod to the fact that money's tight and they don't want to exploit their fans by bringing out 3 new kits every season, on top of the environmental advantages that may or may not have, according to how you answer Matthew's question.
Yes, I think the points that Matthew made are valid. We are seeing more and more kit manufacturers using recycled materials in kits. There is a sustainability issue. There is a concern that old kits are going into landfill, although the rise of the retro kit shop has meant, and I was talking to one of the guys that owns one of these. He says, I'll go to a club at the end of the season and I'll say, how many have you got? If you've got 300 spare, I'll give you 15 quid each. The alternative is that they go into landfill. And it's amazing that, yes, they won't be popular in 1 year's time, but if I hold on to them for 5 years, all of a sudden we start getting a bit nostalgic. And it is amazing how our retrospective perception of football kits changes from, I won't get it this year, looks a bit naff, to actually, I remember that match from 2019 when we won that match. Yeah, I'll go. And retro kit prices can be quite amazing in some cases. So certainly the manufacturers are aware of the need to recycle, and that is being used. As far as the 1 and the 2 year policies are concerned, Adidas are paying £90 million a year to Manchester United. Okay, it's only 80 million this year because they're not in Europe. Adidas are probably paying 70 million to Liverpool. Puma are allegedly paying, I think it's 100 million to the City Football Group, of which the vast share of that will go to Manchester City. The manufacturers want to get a return on their investment, so therefore they need to have as many kit elements as possible. And if you go into a club shop now, it's not just the kit you can buy, it's the warm-up kit, it's the warm-down kit, it's the half-time kit, it's you can get the manager's coat, you can get the guy that collects the cones jacket, and so on. So they are broadening their range of products. Is that any different to the rest of the textiles industry? I don't think it is. And I absolutely understand the position taken by those, especially those parents who are under pressure from their kids. Everybody wants to have this year's kit. And the clubs are aware of it, the manufacturers are aware of it. The prices are high. I mean, I got kits for my two granddaughters. Okay, it was a full kit. Yeah, they're 6 and 4, but it still was 130 quid for 2 sets of kit. Okay, and remember, there's no VAT on children's kits. So there is VAT on adults. So it does seem disproportionately high. And the downside to that is that it has led to the alternative in terms of the knockoff places where you can get, and I'm not going to name them, it wouldn't be appropriate to do so, but everybody knows if you do want a kit, there is an alternative, and you don't know where the money's going. But from a pricing point of view, if you can buy an alternative which looks 99% identical for 10 or 12 pounds, some people will say, I'll take up that option.
The upside of paying that amount of money for kits for your two granddaughters is that they'll probably get that back in prize money at a fancy dress party if they claim they've gone as a Tesco carrier bag. The retro kit thing is astonishing. A game at the end of last season, when the pub was rammed, and a mate of mine, we counted, I think it was 18 or 19 different Palace shirts, of which 4 are available in the club shop. So the club have got like 4 particular classic kits. The rest of them, we're talking to other people, the rest have all been got through website. It's huge. It will happen with the gold away kit that we have now, which I can't stand, and a lot of people can't stand, which almost certainly makes it a classic of the future. And you sometimes wonder how much kit manufacturers are factoring that in, whether they are deliberately thinking about the market in 5 or 10 years' time, because it's gone. In the last 5 years, the retro kit market is huge. And the prices people are paying for kits that were actually worn by players back then, it was just astonishing amounts of money. Rob Bowden has our penultimate question, Kieran, and it's a good old-fashioned early doors price of football podcast, one club question. Rob Bowden says, can you give us an update on the situation at Swindon Town and who might end up owning the club, please?
My understanding, and I can't tell you who the prospective buyer is, but I am aware, I have had communications with a prospective buyer, is that, yes, there is interest in buying Swindon Town. The prospective buyer has given me no details whatsoever, but my gut feeling is that the biggest issue, the biggest hurdle here is price, which is always a major issue. If you take a look at the Alexander Isak issue at not Newcastle and Liverpool, there's a solution, but the solution involves people compromising on price. Yeah. So the asking price for the club from Clem Morfuni, I think, is deemed to be too high. I did do a valuation for somebody who can only describe as the secret Robin some time ago, and I gave my views, and he said, well, this is what we've been quoted, and there was a gap. I said, well, all gaps can be negotiated, all gaps can be dealt with in some way, but the big impasse at present, Rob, is that the owner does not want to sell at the prices that people are willing to pay, and until that issue is solved, then Clem Morfooney will continue to be the owner of the club.
Okay. Joe Ogden has our final question. I'm not sure whether we've got enough time to answer this question, really, Kieran, because it could be it's it's a great question, but I'm not sure how easily you can answer it, and it's going to be changing within the next week. I mean, this is going to court. But Joe Ogden's question is this: can you please clarify why transfer windows came into effect and why they are deemed legal? The way I see it, they create a restriction on movement or employment, which I would have thought in Europe at least is at odds with the law. Was this in some way influenced by the Bosman ruling? And has the concept of transfer windows been challenged legally by any league, club or player? Well, it is being challenged, I think, Kieran. It's being challenged by somebody who was involved in the Bosman ruling. And I think, if anything, we've spoken in the past recently about agents annoying fans, owners annoy fans. Nothing annoys fans more than the transfer window gets. The fact that the transfer window doesn't shut the day the season starts is a nonsense. It's a complete and utter nonsense. So I'm looking forward to you telling Joe. And I mean, possibly huge changes ahead if this legal challenge that we know is going ahead is successful. It will change football completely, won't it?
It will. It could be as impactful as the Bosman ruling itself. For people amongst our listenership of a certain age, and I include myself and Kevin in that, it used to be the 31st of March.
Yeah.
So the rules were you could sign any player during the season until the 31st of March. Then the window came down, and that was to stop a club, let's say in 12th position in the Premier League or its equivalent, selling a couple of players or sending out a couple of players on loan to somebody who potentially could be relegated. And that could have an impact. You can imagine, let's say that Liverpool won the league with 4 games to go and Southampton needed a win on the final, and Liverpool decided to lend all of their squad for a week to Southampton. So it was to do with integrity of the sport in terms of having the original window.
Also, Kieran, it's supposed to work the other way. It was to stop, if a team like Southampton were third, it was to stop a team like Liverpool buying 5 Southampton players to stop them challenging them as well. So
absolutely,
it worked both ways, didn't it?
Yeah. Yes, yep. So the Bosman ruling took place in, I think it was around about 1998, and this gave an issue between the football authorities, in particular FIFA and UEFA, and their relationship with the European Commission, because the Bosman ruling was linked to freedom of movement, which is freedoms are worth having and worth preserving, in my opinion. So what happens that the football authorities, UEFA in particular, and FIFA, they went into extensive negotiations with the European Commission. And the solution, which came through in season 2002-2003, was the creation of the window as we know it at present. And the logic behind of that is that it would give some elements of freedom of movement, although you're still linked to a contract and a transfer fee. It would give contractual stability for both club and player. And it means that we have a regulated market to prevent the issues which you've identified and I identified earlier, is that as you get close to the end of the season, there is scope for clubs to spend money or to sell players in their own short-term self-interest, but would make a mockery of the broader integrity of football. So that's the position we are at present. You rightly made reference to the consequences of the Diarra case, and we'll try and get Maheta back from the PFA to perhaps give us an update as to where we are. Jean-Louis Dupont, who is the Bosman lawyer, he and I are in regular contact. It's not just because we both like bicycles. He's a fascinating guy. So there could be some ramifications arising. We're not quite at the end of the road in terms of getting a judgment. As far as the Diarra case is going, we covered this on the news show a couple of weeks ago. But await developments. And again, I do not foresee Armageddon. I don't see a complete breakdown of the transfer market. There's no desire coming from that from FIFPro and the PFA, because they're aware that for some clubs, the player trading model is the way that they fiscally survive. And it's not in the interests of their members if it's scrapped, because it could mean that quite a few clubs would actually go to the wall if those clubs have been historically successful at bringing through players and selling them on at higher prices. So I do expect some form of settlement which protects the position of the players, but also allows for some form of transfer market and window to continue to exist.
At Talus, we know cybersecurity can be tough and you can't protect everything, but with Talus, you can secure what matters most. With Talus industry-leading platforms, you can protect critical applications, data, and identities, anywhere and at scale with the highest ROI. That's why the most trusted brands and largest banks, retailers, and healthcare companies in the world rely on Talus to protect what matters most: applications, data, and identities. That's Talus, T-H-A-L-E-S. Learn more at talusgroup.com/cyber.
Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just
speaking into the void?
But with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers, a network of 130 million of them, in fact. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills, and did I say job title? See how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
There are people, though, Kieran, and I understand Jean-Louis Dupont is one of them, which names just sound better in French than it. I mean, he's Johnny Bridge, basically. Yes. But Jean-Louis Dupont is one of them who think that the transfer system is at odds with European law on movement and employment and fair competition, which is why he's part of the group that is challenging a particular case, basically on behalf of the people of Europe against the transfer system. And if that challenge is if the challenge in the way it's worded is upheld, there would be some chaos for some time while it is resolved. I know no one wants to see the transfer system got rid of completely, but it would probably take a season or two, as it did with the Bosman, while people worked out what exactly the implications are if this particular legal challenge is successful in the European Court.
Yes, I think that will be the case. Yeah, I agree with you about the French accent. I heard a guy on the radio the other day who used the phrase "argy-bargy" in French, or in a French accent. And I was just going, that's just taking me to a new level.
That's argy. I'll tell you, MasterChef Australia has been taken to a new level with Jean-Christophe Novelli being added to it.
That's it.
Him trying to understand working class Australians and vice versa is hilarious. And thank you to everyone who's joined the Price of Football Club. If you'd like to join that club too and get every episode a day earlier than everyone else, ad-free listening, and invite to our monthly Q&A sessions, bonus episodes and more, go to our website, priceoffootball.com. If you have a question you'd like answered on the show, email us at questions@priceoffootball.com. Don't forget you can follow us on Twitter X. You can find us on YouTube. And if you'd like to buy one of our books or even a Price of Football t-shirt, you can find all the details on that same website, priceoffootball.com. We'll be back on Thursday with our regular news pod. In the meantime, I shall hand you over to Mr. Kieran Maguire for his customary farewell.
Well, thanks to everybody that's been in contact as we put up snippets on social media, and especially to all the West Brom fans who really seem to enjoy the interview that we did with Shilan Patel. That's gone down really well as well, and we're hoping to line up some more interviews going soon. There's ways and means of supporting the podcast which won't cost you any money, and we're living in hard times. And one of the best ways it really does help is to give us a review. Doesn't matter which app you use; they all get aggregated. It helps in the mysterious algorithms which recommend podcasts to people. Doesn't matter what you say. You could even say you would rather have the show presented by Matt and Izzy from the Molotovs. Go see them. Debut album coming out October the 6th. I'm not being paid a penny for this. I just think they're brilliant.
Well, I'll tell you what. In return, they need to call their next album The Mysterious Algorithms. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
The price of football. The price of football.
That's the sound of the fully electric Audi Q6 e-tron and the quiet confidence of ultra-smooth handling. The elevated interior reminds you this is more than an EV. This is electric performance redefined.
Your sausage McMuffin with egg didn't change. Your receipt did. The sausage McMuffin with egg extra value meal includes a hash brown and a small coffee for just $5. Only at McDonald's for a limited time.
Prices and participation may vary.